You are currently living on a massive natural radiator that never turns off, and if someone suddenly pulled the plug, everything you see would turn into a solid block of ice in just a few days. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and the sun looks like a tiny, distant flashlight in a sky that never truly gets bright. Right now, Earth sits in a very lucky spot called the Goldilocks zone, where the temperature is just right for water to stay liquid and for you to stay alive. But if we suddenly moved our planet out to the orbit of Uranus, we would be nearly 2 billion miles away from that life-giving warmth. We are talking about a distance so vast that it takes light itself over 2.5 hours just to reach us from the sun. In this video, we are going to look at the terrifying reality of what happens when a planet built for warmth is shoved into the deepest, darkest freezer in the solar system. This isn't just a little bit of snow or a long winter. It is the total and complete physical collapse of our world as we know it. To understand how bad things would get, we have to look at the math of sunlight, which scientists call the inverse square law. Basically, if you double your distance from the sun, you don't just get half the light, you get 4 times less light and heat. Uranus is about 19 times further away from the sun than Earth is right now, which means we would receive about 1/400th of the solar energy. Think about that for a second. Every bit of warmth you feel on your skin during a summer day would be cut down until it was almost non-existent. The sun would shrink from a big glowing yellow disk in the sky to a brilliant but tiny white dot that looks more like a very bright star than a sun. At high noon on this new Earth, the sky wouldn't be blue anymore. It would be a deep, dark charcoal color even when the sun is up. It would feel like living in a world of eternal twilight where you can barely see the person standing 10 feet in front of you without a flashlight. The moment we hit that new orbit, the heat we have stored up in our atmosphere and oceans would start leaking out into the vacuum of space like air out of a popped balloon. Without the sun constantly pumping new energy into our system, the Earth has no way to stay warm, and space is incredibly cold. The first thing you would notice, besides the darkness, is that the wind would just stop blowing almost everywhere on the planet. Our weather is actually powered by the sun heating up the air and making it move, but without that heat, the atmosphere becomes heavy and still. The clouds would stop moving across the sky, and the entire world would become eerily silent as the convective engine of our climate simply grinds to a halt. Within the first few days, the global temperature would plummet well below zero, and it wouldn't stop there. In a few weeks, we would be looking at temperatures around -100 degrees Fahrenheit across the entire globe, from the equator to the poles. Places like Hawaii or the Amazon rainforest would become colder than the middle of Antarctica is today in the dead of winter. But that is just the beginning of the thermal collapse, because we are heading toward a final temperature of about -370 degrees. At these temperatures, the very air you breathe starts to undergo a terrifying transformation that most people have only seen in science labs. Carbon dioxide is the first to go. When it hits -109 degrees, it turns into a solid and falls out of the sky. Imagine looking out your window and seeing dry ice snow piling up on the ground like white frozen poison that can burn your skin on contact. As the temperature keeps dropping, the 2 main gases in our air, nitrogen and oxygen, would start to reach their breaking point as well. Oxygen turns into a pale blue liquid at about -297 degrees, meaning it would literally start raining liquid air. Eventually, the nitrogen would follow suit, and the entire atmosphere would collapse into a layer of frozen slush on the surface of the planet. The sky would become perfectly clear because there would be no air left to scatter light, and you would be able to see the stars clearly even during the day. But you wouldn't be outside to see it, because any living thing exposed to that environment would be frozen solid in a matter of seconds. The death of the biosphere would be fast and brutal, starting with the plants that rely on sunlight to make food. Photosynthesis would stop instantly because there isn't enough light to power the chemical reactions that keep plants alive. Every forest on the planet would turn into a collection of brittle wooden statues that would shatter like glass if a heavy rock hit them. The entire food chain would break down in days as the herbivores starve and the carnivores soon follow. The oceans would offer a small bit of protection at first because water holds onto heat much better than the air does. But even the mighty Pacific Ocean would eventually lose the battle against the absolute cold of the outer solar system. A layer of ice would form on the surface and grow thicker every single day until it was miles deep, creating a thick armor over the world. The only places where life might hold on would be at the very bottom of the ocean, near hydrothermal vents. These are underwater volcanoes that pump out heat from the Earth's core, and they don't care where the planet is orbiting. Down there, tiny tube worms and bacteria might survive for millions of years, totally unaware that the surface of their world has become a frozen wasteland. For humans, survival would be a desperate race against time to get as far underground as possible before the air freezes solid. Our entire power grid would fail almost immediately because solar panels wouldn't work and wind turbines would snap in the extreme cold. Hydroelectric dams would freeze into solid blocks of ice, and coal plants wouldn't be able to get fuel across frozen, broken train tracks. Our only hope would be nuclear power or geothermal energy, using the natural heat trapped inside the Earth to keep us warm. We would have to build massive sealed cities deep inside the crust, where the rock can act as insulation against the freezing surface. Inside these bunkers, every single thing would have to be recycled, from the water we drink to the very oxygen we breathe. Growing food would involve massive indoor farms, lit by purple LED lights, trying to mimic the sun that we used to take for granted. But even the materials we use to build things would start to fail us in ways we aren't used to seeing in our daily lives. At -300 degrees, common steel becomes as brittle as a ceramic plate and can shatter with a single blow from a hammer. Plastics would crumble into dust, and rubber tires would turn into hard, useless rings that crack as soon as you try to drive on them. Even the ground itself would change as the water trapped in the soil freezes and expands, causing massive cracks to rip through cities and roads. The Earth might even start acting like the moons of the outer planets, where we see things like cryovolcanism. Instead of hot lava, these volcanoes shoot out mixtures of liquid nitrogen, methane, and water ice that freeze instantly in the air. Our new life in the orbit of Uranus would also mean a completely different calendar that would feel alien to any human being. Right now, it takes us 1 year to go around the Sun, but out at Uranus's distance, a single year takes 84 Earth years. If you were born on this new Earth, you would likely die of old age before the planet even finished one trip around the Sun. The seasons would last for 21 years each, though the word season loses its meaning when every day is a battle against absolute zero. We would also have to worry about our massive new neighbor, the gas giant Uranus, which has a huge gravitational pull. If our orbits got too close, Uranus could yank on the Earth and cause massive tectonic shifts or even pull us into a collision course. We might also find ourselves flying through clouds of rocks and debris that stay in the outer solar system, increasing the risk of asteroid impacts. Earth would essentially become a rogue planet, a dark and silent rock, drifting through the outer reaches of the sun's influence. We used to think of our planet as a vibrant, green paradise, but in this orbit, it would look like a giant, white billiard ball. The beautiful blue marble would be covered in a thick crust of frozen gases and ice, hiding the ruins of our civilization forever. Microscopic life might hang on in the dark for eons, but the era of humans, animals, and trees would be a distant memory. It is a sobering thought to realize how much we rely on the specific distance between us and that giant ball of burning gas in the sky. A shift of just a few million miles can be the difference between a tropical beach and a world where the very air turns into ice. We live in a tiny, fragile bubble of warmth in a universe that is mostly cold, dark, and incredibly empty. Moving to the orbit of Uranus wouldn't just be a change of scenery, it would be the ultimate end of the world as we know it. If you want to see what happens when the Earth faces even more cosmic chaos, check out this next video on the screen.